Okay, picture this. It's a normal morning back in February. You're heading to work in Bengaluru, you tap your Metro card to exit, and whoa, the fare is way higher than it was just yesterday. That exact moment happened to thousands of commuters, and for months, everyone was just scratching their heads, wondering what in the world was going on. So let's get into it.
And we're not talking about a tiny little price bump here. This was a massive fare hike of nearly 70%. Literally overnight, Bangalore's Nama Metro became the most expensive metro system in the entire country. For the almost 1 million people who rely on it every single day, that sticker shock was absolutely real.
So the big question on everyone's mind was, why? I mean, usually these kinds of fare changes are explained in a report from a special committee, but this time, the hike happened first, and the official explanation for it didn't come out until a full 7 months later. That long delay just made everyone a bit more suspicious. So let's unpack what that report finally said.
All right, first, let's look at the official story from BMRCL. That's the authority that runs the Bangalore Metro. Their main argument was pretty simple. Their budget had just exploded.
BMRCL's whole case really boils down to this one staggering number. They claimed that between 2017 and 2024, their total expenses, for things like salaries, electricity, maintenance, the whole shebang, shot up by a massive 133%. On paper, yeah, that sounds like a serious crisis.
But here's where you got to look a little closer at the math, because that 133% figure, well, it doesn't exactly tell the whole story. It kind of leaves out a really important piece of the puzzle. And here is that missing piece. During that same time period, the metro network almost doubled in size. It grew from 42 kilometers to 76. So when you actually break down the costs on a per-kilometer basis, the increase wasn't 133%. It was only 39%. That is a huge difference, and it kind of makes that first number feel a little misleading, right? But wait, it gets even more interesting. It wasn't just that the per-kilometer costs were manageable. At the very same time, the number of people riding the metro every day surged by 72%. More riders means more tickets sold, and all that extra money should have been helping to cover any of those rising costs. This is really the key. Look at the difference between what BMRCL wanted and what the expert committee, the FFC, actually recommended. For a long 25-kilometer trip, BMRCL was pushing to charge up to 123 rupees. The committee's suggestion? A much smaller, more gradual increase over time. This tells you the experts just didn't think such a drastic hike was necessary. So if the exploding budget isn't the real reason, then what is? To figure that out, you really have to follow the money and look at the intense financial pressure BMRCL is under. Okay, take a look at this number. This is how much BMRCL has to repay in external loans over just the next 5 years. It is a massive figure, and it puts a huge strain on their finances. And if you thought that was bad, that's not even all of it. On top of those loans, they've got another 21,000 crores in something called subordinate debt that's also coming due. When you're staring down a debt hole that deep, you can't just borrow more money. So what's the easiest lever to pull? Hiking fares.
You see, this debt is just one part of a perfect storm. The state government funding isn't always reliable, construction delays are making every new project way more expensive, and honestly, Bangalore's network is still much smaller than Delhi's, so there are fewer riders to spread all the costs across. All these things are just squeezing BMRCL from every direction.
And let's make this real for a second. Take the yellow line that just opened. Because of all the delays, it ended up costing 400 crores per kilometer to build. The typical cost? Around 250 crores. Every single delay doesn't just inflate the budget. It also means months, sometimes years, of lost revenue from ticket sales.
Okay, so the financial problems are obviously very serious. But does the solution really have to be just dumping the entire burden onto commuters? Well, let's take a look at how other successful metro systems around the world manage to keep their heads above water.
The expert committee actually looked at what cities like Delhi, Singapore, and Hong Kong are doing. And what they found is that these world-class systems don't just depend on ticket sales to survive. They bring in a ton of money from other places. Think advertising all over the stations, developing the land and property nearby, even tying up with events. This makes them way more financially stable.
Yeah, in a really healthy, sustainable model, the money pie looks totally different. Ticket fares might only make up about half of the total income. The other half comes from smarter sources like real estate and advertising.
And diversifying like this is so important because it protects you, the commuter, from having to cover the entire bill.
So, this all brings us right back to the person swiping their card every morning. Bangaluru's metro is really at a crossroads, and the choices that are made right now are going to shape the future of public transport in the city for years to come.
Here's the bottom line. The potential here is enormous. Experts think we could see nearly 1.6 million riders every single day within 5 years. But, and this is a big but, that growth only happens if the metro stays affordable. If fares keep climbing and another hike is already on the table for next February, people might just give up and go back to sitting in traffic.
And that leaves us with this one final critical question. A public transport system is supposed to serve this city, to make life easier and more affordable for its people. The challenge for Bengaluru is finding a way to pay the bills without losing sight of that mission. So the real question is, will the focus be on the commuter or just on the balance sheet?